The coup leaders in Niger seem not to be showing any sign to cede power in spite of the ECOWAS deadline, which elapsed on Sunday. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu, who is also the chairman of the Authority of Heads of State and Government of the Economic Community of West African States, has now called for another extraordinary summit to hold on Thursday, the 10th of August, to discuss the political situation and recent development in Niger Republic. ECOWAS also slapped sanctions on the West African country, which includes a no-fly zone, cutting electricity supply and freezing the assets of the coup leaders in the region. But pressures have been mounting on President Tinubu from several quarters to jettison the military option and continue to explore all diplomatic and political means to resolve the standoff. Joining us in the studio is convener Campaign for Dignity in Governance, Razak Olukoba. Good morning.
Monica, good morning.
Welcome.
My dear sister, how have you been?
Very well, thank you. And via Zoom from Senegal is a security expert and regional coordinator for Central Africa Institute for Security Studies in Senegal, Dr. Oluwole Ojewale. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, let me begin with you, Dr. Jawale. Let's get your assessment of how ECOWAS is handling this matter of the coup in the Niger. We have seen the sanctions, which some have said was a hasty decision. We have seen ECOWAS saying that it was going to go in using military might, and there has been calls against that decision. What do you interpret from what ECOWAS is doing or has been saying or doing with regards to this matter?
Thank you once again. I think we need to underscore the fact that ECOWAS is on the right trajectory. And the steps that the ECOWAS has taken so far those steps must be commended. The reason is that much as there is rhetoric about going to war, ECOWAS has taken the first step by sending nothing less than, I think, 2 to 3 envoys to go and negotiate with the coup leader. They've sent the Chadian head of state, they've sent former head of state and the Sultan of Sokoto. I'm also aware that the NIA director has led a particular team. I think about 3 to 4 delegates have actually been sent to Niger. That is one. The second thing is that the sanctions are also in order. They are soft tools to persuade the junta to do the right thing. And the third option, which a lot of people felt has probably elapsed yesterday, I don't think that is the correct idea. That is the correct understanding for the obvious reasons. In military or strategic studies, there's what they call strategic ambiguity. You don't let out the cards in terms of how you want to go about your war operations. And you can see that Nigeria has also closed their airspace, probably thinking or anticipating that there's going to be external aggression at any moment. So I think ECOWAS is keeping a lot under the radar and trying to explore and exhaust the diplomatic option before they go the other way of probably trying to deploy force to restore democratic order in the Niger Republic. But I must say that ECOWAS should be commended for the steps taken so far, and we believe there's going to be a result on the long run.
Okay, let's come back to the studio, Doctor, to compare your views with that of our guest here. So, Mr. Olokoba, what do you think, especially with this pending meeting that we hear ECOWAS will have next on Thursday this week, even though it has already said that military intervention will be a last resort? But as to its possible moves, next moves now, what are your thoughts in this regard?
You see, we have to look at the situation we find ourselves in Africa so that all of us will get a clearer picture. Between now and the next 100 years, assessment has come out to look at what roles each continent will be playing in the world. Military and economy, which is the two most sensitive aspect of our life when we are talking about international relations. And roles has been apportioned, given the strength of each continent. America is battling with Russia as the strongest military, depending on which I look at it. Some say it's America, some say it's Russia. Then the other continents are not weak militarily, but they might not be in the forefront like Russia and America. Australia, the Asians, Europe. But when you look at the economy too, China and America are slugging it out. The remaining continent has been seen as someone that will play a major role in the world. But Africa is not in the picture. We are not even a pound in the chest again. They just keep the chest in our custody, only for them to retrieve it when they want to play it. We are only good for any continent who wants to be the strongest in the economy to come and tap into our resources. We are only good for countries who are strong militarily to tap into our resources. And that was the point PLO Lumumba was making, Professor, that the scrambling for Africa and the partition has begun again. And that was what the president had in mind too. The moment he emerged as the chairman of ECOWAS, people don't get what he was saying. He said that was what led to the coup in Niger. And I look at the black people, because the North Africa is another case. The first incursion into the land of the black people were the Arabs. We do not have good story of what they did to us as black men when they took over Egypt, Morocco, Libya. So let's leave that on our side. So what I'm saying in essence is that I'm talking about East, West, and South Africa. So when the chairman of ECOWAS said that we should not allow such to continue, that was what he was saying, that will only be relevant in the scheme of things. If you read Chris Brown on international studies, go and read a particular guy's atomic council. I know we have read it severally. The shape of things to come. You will weep for Africa. So when you look at all of this, and the military is also taking over in all the... Of course, the death of democracy, as described by many authors, that
if you can
democracy
just quickly
is...
hold we need to quickly go on
okay,
a commercial break.
okay.
Yes, and when we return, we'll continue where you left off.
Okay.
Stay with us. All right, thank you for staying with us. Before we went on the break, we were looking at the matter of the coup in Niger, and we still have our guests. In the studio, we have Razak Olukoba, who is the convener campaign for dignity in governance. And via Zoom from Senegal, we have Dr. Oluwole Ojewale, who is a security expert and regional coordinator for Central Africa Institute for Security Studies in Senegal. And in the studio, Razaki, we're talking about how we got to this point, especially with regards to the death of democracy. And before you continue your line of thoughts, there has been the matter of if African leaders are actually telling themselves the truth with regards to how they have handled democracy every time they have meetings, be it at ECOWAS or even the AU. So you can continue.
Tell me any region in Africa that is not in this hurry. And democracy is not dead only when the military comes. Democracy comes when your people are not getting the dividends of that democracy.
Right.
When you are denied human rights, when you have resources and your people are also still poor, which is the case in Africa. So all Africa must look at the issue from this perspective. We should not be greedy like I said about this. We should not be selfish about it. There are people who live in Niger are blaming Tinubu now that they will be sent back home. There's the bigger picture. There's no time all of you will not be enslaved eventually if you don't stop what is happening at the moment. The Russians and the Americans and the rest of the world who might feel that the Chinese and Russians are a bit fair. There's no fairness in all the things they are doing to us. None of them are fair to us. But we can't blame them. In the foreign policy of any country, you will pursue it. If you as a country, you sign a porous agreement with me to have access to your resources, that's not my problem. So there's no country that is saying that Africa should not put their hands together. We should be blamed for that. So for ECOWAS now, I think ECOWAS should do more of these exposures. Africans should begin to point out the dangers that is staring us in the face. The perspective for the Nigerian people and all the countries who felt that sending their president away is the solution, they need to let them understand the implication that you are just postponing the evil days. It is important for us to speak with one voice. I look at the danger of going in there with military. I look at it. I look at material crisis and all. If you have the capacity, I will not say we should not go in. If you have the capacity. In fact, that has become discontentious. It's good for us. So that it's going to send a signal to the rest of the world that 1.3 million people under humanitarian crisis will dislodge the entire world. So, and that is what is about to happen. America should take note. Russia should take note. Europe should take note. Australia should take note that If they dislodge the peace in Africa, which is where they are dragging us to, they are also in trouble. So for us as a people, don't let us kill each other. I will appeal to ECOWAS to re-strategize. What they want is what is happening, but that's a danger for the rest of the world. They don't want us to speak with one voice. So we should do more of trying to explain to each other that you are endangered, as well as I'm endangered if you told this part.
But in all of what you've said, are you saying now that there is an angle of the Russians in the development in Niger? We've seen the Russian government condemning the coup, but then we've also seen the coup leaders, reaching out to the Russian Wagner group. What exactly?
There's the angle of all the superpowers in Africa, not only the Russians. The Russians will appear at the beginning as if they are going to give a better deal or a fairer deal to us. But at the end of the day, the deal will not be fair. The best deal is for Africans to make use of our own resources. Why will US sell my uranium to you? 90% of houses in Niger, in Chad, where they get uranium, there's no electricity. So let's refocus on how we are going to be united as a people. The Pan-African Radical Congress had our own convention about a week ago, and we came out with our own resolution. We want to gather about 10 million signatures to send to the United Nations, and accusing them of the role they are playing in Africa. All the international organizations, they close their eyes to so many terrible things that is happening in Africa. That's not fair. America refused to be part of ICC, International Criminal Court. Why? And the 3 presidents that has been tried in Africa, in Pinochet and Charles Taylor and one other one that's been tried, America supplied intelligence on how but they don't want to be part of ICC. What's their excuse? Yeah. Their excuse is that they always at the front line of policing the world. So there may be errors. So they want to be, but that is not. They are committing heinous crimes. So let us put all of them together as one and say that they are not being fair to us. There's nowhere in Africa where guns are produced and bullets are produced. There's nowhere. But where they use guns to do terrible and illegal things most in the world today is Africa.
It's Africa, right. Let's quickly get Dr. Ojawale's perspectives to some of the things that you have raised here in the studio, how it is important that as a region, we need to begin to speak with one voice, and we need to see ourselves as one. Perhaps we also have not understood the implications of what a war might mean if we have something of that nature in Niger happen. Could you speak to us on that?
Well, I don't think it's really so much about the vision now. The challenge is that externally, there are a lot of pressures and interest in the conflict that is going on in the region. And if you have 15 countries and 4 happens to be dissident, and you still have 11 intact, I think there's still a balance that can be treated to make everyone to go in the popular direction of the other 11 countries. So what you have now is people who are trying to reinvent the dark days of military incursion into politics. And they are using all kinds of means, particularly in Francophone West Africa. They are fanning anti-French sentiments to sustain their hold in power and to also come into power. And a lot of people are also being deceived in this process. Those people that you see on the street who are pro-coup protesters, they think this is their liberation moment, and then they should embrace these dark days that we thought we have put in the past. Anyone who has lived under a military regime obviously knows that a lot are not going to work. The military, the men on the horseback, are not trained to provide national leadership. It's just like, it's an association of professionals. It's just like maybe journalists coming together to say they want to seize power, or maybe teachers association coming together to say they want to seize power. That is not the global standard now. Anyone who wants to come into power must go through the ballot. And I also think specifically in terms of those countries, there has never been a concerted effort to consolidate democracy in those countries. That is the reason why in Niger, for instance, in the past 3 years, 2021 till now, there has been about 3 coups. In fact, the day that Bazoum was supposed to be sworn into power, a day before, there was a coup attempt. And when he came into power, there has also been a coup attempt till the last one that they perfected. Why am I saying that? In a country, there is a need for that elite consensus to say anyone who wants to come into political arena, anyone who wants to govern the country, whether at the national or subnational level, the only route is only through the ballot. Look, for instance, take Nigeria, for example. In the last election, we had the former chief of ES staff who contested the election in Bauchi State, even though he has occupied that vintage position before. So everyone needs to come to the point that you realize that democracy is the only alternative that we have now. No one has been able to reinvent anyone that is better than that. And that is the only thing that we need to embrace now. They have come into power now. They are not saddled or trained for that responsibility. Burkina Faso, Mali are in a state of chaos now, because since 2021 that the junta came into power in Mali, for instance, the only thing that fellow has been preoccupied with is regime protection, being protected by Wagner, issues of health, issues of social development and economy, even what they claim that they are that as the primary reason for seizing political power, that is deterioration of the security. They've not been able to do that effectively. Violent attacks have been on the rise in Burkina Faso and in Mali, because these people do not have solutions to the problem. Once they come into power, they are preoccupied with just two things: elongating their stay in power and regime protection, and every other thing suffers. So like in the case of Niger, this is what is going to be the outcome on the long run if they refuse to see the angle, the argument, the persuasion, to receive the persuasion that others are making. But we must also caution that going in the direction of war must not be the alternative, the only option on the table now. And that's why I said ECOWAS must be commended for the steps taken so far, because the potential humanitarian consequence of going into war can only be better imagined and experienced.
Still with you, Dr. Ojewale. Now that there is a pending meeting, as I asked Mr. Olokoba here on Thursday, I mean the ECOWAS meeting is scheduled to hold on Thursday this week, even though Mali, Guinea-Bissau, and Burkina Faso have said that any potential, I beg your pardon, any potential military intervention by ECOWAS on the Nigerian nation would be a war against them as well. But they've given a green light that they will attend the meeting on Thursday. I don't know whether you look at, possible icebreakers that could emerge from that meeting, even though there doesn't appear to be any progress made in engagement with the soldiers, the coup leaders in Niger.
There are high-level meetings that are taking place, and I must say that there are marginal progress, even though they have probably not percolated into the media. The junta also know that there is zero tolerance for their stay in power. And those who are forming solidarity from Burkina Faso, Guinea, and Mali, they are only doing so to also use the opportunity to probably demonstrate that they actually want to stay in power in a situation in which everything becomes chaotic. And I think that is the strategic thing that ECOWAS must avoid now, by not creating a convoluted state in which even to negotiate for peace becomes very difficult. I am optimistic that the Thursday meeting is going to produce a marginal result again, in the sense that now this time around, the president are coming with each of their defense staff to review the situation in Niger. In fact, today, another ECOWAS team is going to Niger with the UN, with the AU, to further persuade the junta. What I think is going to happen on Thursday is that there is likely going to be probably additional sanction that will be placed on Niger, exploring different options, and possibly this time around maybe deploy high level, which is probably more than what has been deployed before, in terms of envoys that should go to Niger. A lot of people have been asking questions: where's President Muhammadu Buhari in all this? Where's Obasanjo in all this? So I think things might go in that direction now, to further persuade the junta to restore democracy in the long run. But I also think on Thursday, ECOWAS will also be looking at other options on the table, maybe transitional government in the shortest time possible, because all options must just be kept open and explore, so that maybe between the next 12 to 18 months, there could be possibility of another election just looking at every card that can be played and put on the table this time. But there is there is marginal success. In fact, in the case of Mali, they've sent a transitional timetable. It ends in February next year. Guinea-Bissau and Burkina Faso, I think Guinea-Conakry, sorry, one ends in August and Burkina Faso ends in December. So ECOWAS is making progress in all this negotiation. It's just that it is when there is a state of conflict like this that there is a lot of global attention. But I think there is going to be some remarkable progress again when the head of state, the president of the sub-region review the actions taken on Niger so far.
Let's bring the conversation back to the studio to you now, Razak. I wonder what you see. He is optimistic that there will be further improvement in the conversation and negotiations and the effort for diplomacy and all of it. But we're still seeing a defiant junta refusing to perhaps do what is necessary. I am wondering what you think is behind their defiance, so to speak, with what we have seen. The first sanction, they didn't budge. If there is another sanction out of this meeting, do you think they would budge? Where do you think their confidence lies?
The more we divide ourselves, the better for the rest of the world that are coming to make Africa. And they won't just come to you that, don't be a friend to your brother. You have to be enemies. They come with different pegs. So Russia just realized the need for it to also come out 17 million square kilometers. Virtually all the things he needed is in that country. But the moment he got to know that his neighbors are gradually becoming his enemy, so he began to come out too. And that is what he's trying to do now. There's a lot of assurance before any military coup will happen. And if you also look at the coup in Nigeria too, there were instances where we have had promised mail to Nzogu before he struck from the Eastern Bloc that led to the emergence of Erosin. So also, who sustained Gowon in power for that long, particularly when the Civil War broke out. It was also Russia that played a lot of role in ensuring that we get what we needed. So Russia has had a long relationship with our military men, and that is not limited to what is happening today in Niger. So essentially, he has had a lot of assurances from Russia. Russia is strong economically. The rest of the world in the West may not want us to see it from that perspective. Shut the grain supply down. We see the price of bread skyrocketing all over the world, and anything that comes from flowers, production, and things like that. So he is asking assurance from Russia and a few other countries, because he can't do it alone. But like we have said, that what will sustain that confidence, that's what we should now go and try to rupture. And that is why ECOWAS should do more of allowing the countries that are on the side to see the bigger picture or what may befall Africa. That's what we should be doing now. So also, the people in Niger, when the military came, they were alliance with us as a civil society in Nigeria here, with other international organizations in the world. We should do similar thing for Niger. Some of us who were arrested, Wole Soyinka had international link that led to mounting oppression on Abacha to leave power and return power to Obje. Something like that should be done to Niger too, and they should explore it. And for the man as the president of ECOWAS now, he has the capacity, he has the profile and the background to do such a thing. So there must be the need for the people of Nigeria who are also politically cleared for us to link up with them. They didn't attend our own conference. They didn't come. We sent inflation to them, but they didn't attend. But there should be a way they should be able to get. There are no countries in the world who see things from the other side of the divide. So there are millions of people in Nigeria too who do not agree with the coup. But because there's no template for them to ventilate, that's why it looks as if the entire country is with the military. It's not the entire country. So that should be the focus, in my own estimation, the focus of ECOWAS now. Then, I am happy that the UN is part of the game now. The UN network should be used, and particularly, we should point out the roles that we are not happy about that they are playing on all of this matter. If you do that, all of them will answer off. If you look at the ARG and the main military in the other country that they are slugging it out now, Russia is supplying weapons, America is supplying weapons. We have to bring this into the open. We have to be able to confront them with some of these facts. So if you sit down with them all the time, what are we discussing with them? Mm-hmm. Are we not supposed to be discussing issues like this with them? So if ECOWAS, AU is going to be meeting AU, these are issues they should be discussing with them. So, and the more pressure we mount on such organization, the more hope that we have that the Nigerian guys that took over now will be able to say this in with what you are saying. And again, we should let the people of Niger understand our own experience with the military. You should let them, they know what the military may contain. And in fact, an assessment came out that the best military rule in the world was Charles de Gaulle of France. But there's one fundamental thing that people pointed out. It's not the will of the people, which is the case with all the military rulers in the world, that the will of the people is absent in your taking over of governance. And that is what we must point out. So, in summary, we should try as much as possible to point out that this guy didn't mean well for the people of the... When Izogu came on board, when Gowon came on board, when Mauritania came on board, Abacha, Babangida, they said something similar with what they have also said. But looking at what you have done, in all the military era, they did not meet even 1% of all the promises that were made. In fact, 1966 was the beginning of what was our problem politically and economically in this country. And the case of Nigeria will not be different. And these are issues that ECOWAS should be bringing to the front burner in engaging Burkina Faso and the rest of them. So they should let them understand that their government didn't have a future. There's no how Nigeria will survive with this sanction. And that is the message they should be sending to him.
Okay, and talking about with sanctions, so there are also, implications that some analysts have said Nigeria will also suffer at this point. Border closure, that it would definitely cost Nigeria. In fact, Business Day is even analyzing that $1.3 billion are at risk over the closure the closure of the border with Niger. We've seen that take effect according to the Customs Service. But what do you look at the implications, adversely or otherwise, that it would bring Nigeria, noting our long-standing relationship?
The institutions that brings all this kind of data, professional organizations, should stop creating problem for all the solutions. We all agree that this is a decision that we must take. So if you begin to look at this the fringes again, you are creating distraction for us. There's no country that American sanction, no matter how good that country is, it will affect America too. Not to talk of countries like Russia. So if you sanction your neighbor, definitely it will come with some implications. So they should not be reminding us that. What we should be looking at is the danger of what is going to befall Africa in the next 25 to 50 years. You can't bequeath this kind of continent to our children that will be coming after us. We cannot. And it's not going to be fair on them. You have the resources, you have everything. Why will you hand over a rickety continent to them? And that's what we should be thinking about. So, in summary, let's refocus our attention on the bigger picture that is coming. We are not in the scheme of things. African has more resources to the background. And the resources is not infinitum. It may finish one day. You are taking the nutrient of the soil, the oil, the uranium. It's the nutrient of the soil. It may finish one day. Look at the day it is finished. Did we invest? All those countries in the world today that they are number one, they don't have uranium. They are just organized. They don't have oil. They are first to 10 richest countries in the world today. They don't have oil. Only 1 or 2 of them have oil. They don't have so much, but because they are just organized, let's be organized. That's what we are saying. And the things they come to take from Africa, it's not things that are promoting peace. Uranium, lead, all this. It's not food. So no matter how we look at it, is not going to end well for Africa, except we take this decision. So for me, we stand with ECOWAS. So we might review our strategy. We might look at it again, military solution, more engagement, more advocacy around it, trying to make them see reasons why they should not remain in power. We have to talk, but they should backtrack. I don't think ECOWAS should try. All of us, you must stand with ECOWAS. You must stand with ECOWAS.
All right, Dr. Ochewale, we have less than 2 minutes for you to wrap up your thoughts on this matter quickly.
Two things. I do hope that within the context of the plan that ECOWAS has put in place and that is being reviewed constantly, that they have a clinical approach if they want to go through the deployment of force because of the potential consequence. And the second thing is that let us look at Afghanistan. After the US government spent about $2 trillion to build the state, 20 years after, the house fell like a pack of cards, and the state US government is now negotiating with Taliban now. The experience that happened in Libya, we all are living in the consequences of it today because of the invasion of Libya. A lot of people said in 2 weeks, Ukraine is going to be brought down. Now the man is still resisting. I've created this picture to say you can only predict you can only tell the beginning of a war. You can't tell how it's going to end. And we must look at the potential consequences of those actions. And the last thing is that you see the Algerian president shouting and screaming. It is because of his lived experience with the Libya post-conflict consequences. So we need to look at this thing very critically, and ECOWAS must explore and exhaust all peaceful means to restore democracy or to political embargo in Niger now, and not just take a rush decision to probably invade Niger. And I do wish them the best in whatever direction that they take, but the potential consequences of the action must be factored in.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you, Dr. Oluwole Ochewale, who joined us from Senegal. He is a security expert and regional coordinator for Central Africa Institute for Security Studies. Thank you so much. Razak Olukoba, convener, Campaign for Dignity in Governance.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.